Tractate Sanhedrin, פרק שלישי, the third chapter, called זה בורר, page 23. This chapter, in a way, it's connected or continuing the first of the chapter. It starts with the same words, דיני ממונות בשלושה, and it's dealing with beidin smuchin, which means that you have ish mipi ish, one from another, reach to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the whole idea of how the bet din, the basic three members of rabbinic court, convene and adjudicates monetary cases. Their way of manner of assembled, the way that they functions, the special session, that's the key idea of this chapter. Now, just a little bit introduction. The concept of zabla that we discussed in the past needs to be clear before we getting there. Zabla is a Hebrew acronym. It's the abbreviation of the Hebrew letter Zayin, Bet, Lamed, Aleph. Meaning, Ze, Zayin, Bet, Borer, Lamed, Lo, Aleph, Echad. Reuven, it's one party. Let's say the plaintiff. Shimon is the defender. They don't get along. Each proposal for different rabbinic court opposed by the other party. Such as Reuven tried to take Shimon to the Bet Din, the rabbinic court in one city. For example, Reuven live in Long Island, Shimon live in a city. Reuven tried to take him to Bet Din in Long Island. Shimon said, no, as linan bataya hanidba, you have to go to the place that I live, and I'm in a city. So he forced Shimon to go to the city. Shimon applied to a court in the city. Reuven. Shimon comes back and he said, this is, the judges there, it's in your favor. I don't want to go to that court. So in short, it's almost like a game that Shimon tried to postpone the case instead of really get together and reconcile. So they reach a point, for example, community pressure, family pressure, or even the court said, Ktav Siruv, we are going to put out the words that you are in a way rude enough to reject the notion of appearing in the rabbinic court. As a result of that, there is an option that is called zabla, meaning each rabbinic court have a list of judges. So since the very basic formulation of court, for those not familiar with what we discussed in the previous two chapters, we said by Jewish law we have three different forms of courts. We have Supreme Rabbinic Court of 70 or 71. We have the 23, which is only capital law. And we have monetary issues and other personal basic issue, which is the 3. Meaning, you have to have uneven, so you have 1, 2, and the 3 in a way is the head of the Rabbinic Court. So each Rabbinic Court has a list of dayanim, a list of rabbinic judges that reside in their respective court. In that case, Reuven go to the city of Shimon, and the court in the city sent Shimon a list of judges, and he said, here is the deal. Reuven will pick one, Shimon will pick the other one, and then the third one, that's a disputation. Soon you see that one view, which is Rabbi Meir, said that both of them agreed upon the third one, or the sages said that no, you choose Reuven, you choose Rabbi A, and you Shimon choose Rabbi Judge B. So A and B themselves agreed to the third party to reside and be the head of the court. But there is another form that we need to know in order to give the proper respect to those respected judges of the court. It's called Ktav Borer, which means that in order not to belittle or disregarded the reverence we have for the court, there is a rule that each party needs to sign and follow and agree upon, that whatever the court rules, that will be the final words. Rabbeinu Asher, the Rosh, is kind of disturbed with the concept of taking a mediator or taking one. He said the issue in Bet Din in general is usually they are so overloaded with cases that they don't dig in. So even each party takes someone to be kind of his person, still there is a special Torah requirement from the judge to be absolutely neutral. What does that mean? Because Reuven take Rabbi, Judge, let's call him a name, David, does not mean that David is the power of attorney or representative of Reuven. Or Shimon, because he took Rabbi, Judge, let's call him Aharon, this Rabbi, Judge Aharon cannot show partiality to the party that chooses him. He needs to be absolutely fair and objective to the subject. This is a strong language, not only the Rosh. Is another great rabbi by the name, his writing is called Panim Meirot. And he said that in a very strong language, that they should have the fear of the Lord, since this is not a secular, this is a serious rabbinic court, that they have not to represent, quote unquote, their party. You are not a power of attorney to represent the party that chooses you. You have the law of the Dayanim, the special rules that applies to rabbinic judges, such as, for example, you cannot hear just one party, meaning you just not allow by any means to hear one party. You have to have a full decorum convening the court and hear both parties. Otherwise, you're not total godly, fearing, fair rabbinic judge. So here we are, page 23. We start with our sacred Mishnah. And as we always said, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Elohai v'Elohei avotai. We pray to God, God of our ancestors, shelo ye'era takala al yadi, that should not be stumbling or saying something incorrectly. V'lo yekashel bidvar halacha, should not stumbling or saying some incorrect halachic statement. וישמחו בי חבריי, ולא אומר על טמא טהור ולא על טהור טמא. I shouldn't say something impure that is impure, pure. גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך. משנה. דיני ממונות בשלושה. When it's come to a monetary disputation between parties, you have to have the decorum of a court. When the court adjudicates by those judges, it's 3. How do you choose? So basically, obviously, you cannot force people, but the Beit Din has the right, as we said earlier, to write Ktav Sirut, a letter of refusal, and publicize it if someone refused. But in a case like that, that it's so hard, difficult, and unfortunately people get personal and feud, and so they said, one party, ze borer lo echad, veze borer lo echad. Reuven chooses one judge, such as, just for using name, David, and Shimon chooses Aharon to be his judge. Ushnehem borerin lahen od echad divrei Rabbi Meir. So according to Rabbi Meir, they said that 2 of them choose one more for themselves. So it means that the party that get together. Rashi tried to say that they both agree for another Beit Din of 3 and it's all 9, but that's not the way soon you see the final rules. But when it's come, v'chachamim omrim, and the sages said, Shnei dayanim borerin lahen od echad. The selected judges from each party will pull together a 3rd one that both judges, rabbinic judges, agree upon. And that's basically create the uneven. Later the Gemara elaborates on that disputation. זה פוסל דיינו של זה, וזה פוסל דיינו של זה דברי רבי מאיר. Rabbi Meir said that each party can disqualify the judge chosen by the litigant, and that litigant can disqualify the judge chosen by the other party. והחכמים אומרים, מתי בזמן שמביא עליהן ראיה שהן קרובים פסולים? The sages said no. The only reason for you, Shimon, to disqualify the judge David that represents Reuven, or for you, Reuven, to disqualify Aharon judge that represents Shimon, is if you can prove to the court that this judge is a relative of the other party. Otherwise, it's not acceptable just by saying, I don't like this guy, I don't want him. אבל אם היו כשרים, if they are befitting, valid judges, or מומחים מפי בית דין, or the rabbinic court declare that they are expert, אינו יכול לפוסלן. The other party cannot disqualify them. זה פוסל, now the next disputation, זה פוסל ידיו של זה, וזה פוסל ידיו של זה, which means one litigant can disqualify the witnesses of the other litigant, and vice versa. דברי רבי מאיר, והחכמים אומרים, מתי, when one party can disqualify the other party's witnesses, the same idea, בזמן שמביא עליהן ראיה שהם קרובים, או פסולים. If you can bring a proof that the other witnesses from the other party are relatives, or somehow disqualified by halacha from bearing witness for other serious reason. אבל אם היו כשרים, but if they are fit to serve as witnesses, אינו יכול לפוסלם. The other party cannot disqualify them. So the truth is that the late Rabbi Wozner of Bnei Brak, which I have the privilege to humbly get a beautiful askama in 1987 to my book on Rashi, Rav Wozner's respond to a painful, and I think that's a good example of this. It was a disputation of a get between husband and wife, and each party, you know, the worst thing is when it's a family feuds, it never ended, and it perpetuates with the children, and it's so much hatred and bigotry. So anyway, in that case, each party, which is the family of the wife and the family of the husband, chooses Zabla, chooses a Dayan that represent the other party. So those the judges was represented the husband's party, he realized that soon he's going to lose the case at the first rabbinic court. So before the last session was scheduled, he went to another Beit Din, and that rabbinic judge basically bad-mouthed the wife, spread lies, spread horrible thing about her. And basically what he applies is to get from the other rabbinic court heter me'arabanim, meaning if there is a tremendous amount of difficulties, such as long time, such as adamant and abstinent party, etc., there are rare acceptance that you can have a signature of 100 recognized, respected rabbis that sign a special petition, and that basically abrogated the Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershom. As you know, we said it many times, at the 11th century, Rabbi Rabbeinu Gershom put, Meor HaGolah, he put a special ban against marry, like polygamy, more than one wife. So since that man and her are getting so much feud and hatred, so when you have this consent of 100 rabbis, it's in a way by the rabbinic court, if it's accepted, it abrogated that Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershom, that ban, and therefore he can marry the second one. So it didn't fly well. So he realized that he wants to come back to the original session of the original first Beit Din. So the case brought before Rav Wojner, and they ask, the other two judges, the one who represents the wife and the one who's the head of the Beit Din, said that this fellow, as we mentioned earlier, the Rosh, the Panimiyot, is not really a fair, natural, honest judge. And luckily, the late righteous Rav Shmuel Wojner, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, rules that they are right, meaning you cannot force the other two judges to sit with kind of unscrupulous third judge that instead of following the God order, that you're not really power of attorney to represent the person who chooses you, but instead you are just a fair judge, because you behave in this pattern in such a way, that's basically disqualified you to be part of this theme, and therefore by force of circumstance this Beit Din cannot convene with you. You have to disqualify yourself from being the third judge, and the husband need to find someone from the list of the Beit Din to represent him, and that's the rule of Rav Wojner. Anyway, from this point we are going now to our Gemara. Gemara. Apparently, it looks like that you have three sets of three, meaning one agree upon three judges in one court, another one three, and those three agree to another three. Bitlata sage, we basically have enough to judge a case by three judges. So Yad Ramah and others said, so what's the whole idea of the Zabla here? So Hachike Amar ksheze borer lo bedin echad veze borer lo bedin echad, meaning each of them likes a specific Beit Din. Shnehem borerin lahen od echad. So both together they must reach some type of compromise and decide about the composition of rabbinic court that will judge them. But obviously you don't need more than three rabbinic judges, three dayanim. So the Gemara asks, "Va'afilu loveh matzeh me'akev," meaning when you have a borrower and a lender. So obviously the lender is after the borrower to pay him what he owes him. But here it turns that then even the one who owe him, the borrower, restrict the choice of the court. ואמר רבי אלעזר לא שנו, אלא מלווה, it's only when it's come to lender, אבל לווה, כופין אותו ודן בעירו. But when it comes to someone who borrowed, we have to force him, we have to compel him to appear in the rabbinic court that presides in his own city. So how come the Mishnah said that the two litigants can go and refuse to go to a bet din that the other party chooses? So כדאמר רבי יוחנן, בערכאות שבסוריה שנו. Here we talk about the court, layman's court in Syria. So in general, in those days, and you have it also nowadays, you have court, for example, of jurors that understand jury. And these people are not rabbinic judges, but they are expert in the field of jury. So at that time it was people who are basically good people, lay people, but they have specialty. So here, by halakha, obviously they're not befitting to be a rabbinic judge, because their ruling is not follow the path of Torah. They just have certain expertise, but the residents of that location accepted them as the authority. And therefore, if the lender and the borrower agreed, it's one thing, but if the lender wants to take him to that court and the borrower said, no, I'm willing to go only before rabbinic court that follow the law of Torah, you have to listen to him. And even then in a different location, aval, mumchin, lo. But if the creditor chooses a court of experts, so the borrower does not have the right to refuse to be judged before them. So as we said, the Chazon Ish, the late Rav Karelitz rule when it's come to a juror, he said if both parties agree upon that, so in general you can go ahead and go to that court. However, he said the problem with the regular typical secular court, Chazon Ish said, that since there is a status of limitation, for example, the judge can rule between 2 to 8 years for certain cases, etc. So he said that's not the line, the path of Torah, it's totally different, therefore you cannot go in that direction. So they said, no, so you don't go there. But the Aruch HaShulchan tried to explain to us what's the really difference between a someone who's deny that he borrow money versus someone that have a clear documentation that proof of a loan. He used the term when it's come to a regular debtor, a borrower, the line from the book of Proverbs, Eved loveh leish malveh. It's almost like you are a slave as a borrower to the lender. So it's a famous story about my great grandfather, the Sar Beit HaZohar, Rab Hershel of Zidichoiv. So the story goes that one time he was so poor, he didn't have the money to travel, so he went to one of his colleagues, the Jose of Lublin, and he asked to borrow him money. So he said, kind of jokingly, he said to him, you know, I'll gladly give you because Eved malveh leish loveh, you become my kind of servant. So he answered him and he said, no, we learn about Eved, koneh Eved ivri ki koneh adon leatzmo. You're buying a master for yourself. Anyway, it was just a joke between the two. Anyway, the next explanation is Rav Papa Amar. Rav Papa said, "Afilu tema mumchin." Even you tell me that here we apply to an expert, kegon beidina de Rav Huna v'Rav Chizda. So here it was a case that the lender wants to go before one of them, and the borrower wants to go before the other. The kamarle mika matrina lach. So he said, am I burdening you by requesting that you be judged by a different rabbinic court? remind me a joke. You see one Jew in an empty island built 2 synagogues. It's always that synagogue I never step in. And it happens that you have in a small city 2 places. One you worship and the other one. Done. ואחרים אומרים שני דיינים בוראים להם עוד אחד ויסגל התחקי לאמרין. So we said the 2 judges that selected the third one. בדין בתאי דפסללו, אז לא ברור לו בדין האחריני. After they become disqualified, how Yadromax, they are now called to choose another one. So ועוד, מהי זה בורא לו אחד וזה בורא אחד? What's the whole concept of Zabla, that each party want to choose for himself, each litigant choose one for himself, and each disqualifying the court that the other choose. It was a response from the late Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Libracha, over a place that they have many organizations, and he basically rules that one is not basically kafuf lebeit hadin. He can choose the mediator the way he chooses. Rav Wozner disputed that. Rav Wozner said that if there is a bet din, so you cannot take a mediator, you have to follow the rule of the bet din. He said the problem sometimes, unfortunately, we live in such a generation that some of the judges feel that we are not, we basically almost like we hire by one party, we're like power of attorney. So therefore, Rav Wozner ruled that you have to go always by the bet din. And one of the good example, I think, is the story of Rab Chaim Falaji, the great Sephardic posek, that he refused to get salary as a judge in the court because he doesn't want to show any, even it was from the general government, he felt that he should not get a salary since it's all the sensitive issue of judging fairly. The whole idea, the levush, it's a great book called the levush. He said that we have to be careful also with inui din, meaning postponing the case, running around, because some people does that on purpose. They drag the other party to different court, to different location, different judges, buying time, etc. And they all do that in order to buy time. And sometimes even each party choose someone. Now let's choose the third one, and it's just one party does it on purpose. So the Levush said that that's a very grieving sin to do inui din, to postpone unnecessarily the case. Anyway, אלא הכי כאמר, כשזה בורא לו דיין אחד וזה בורא לו דיין אחד, שניהם בוראים להם עוד אחד. So they are together, choose the third one. מה ישנה דאבני אחי? Why they do that? אמרי במערב המשמד רבי זרע, מתוך שזה בורא לו דיין אחד וזה בורא לו דיין אחד, ושניהם בוראים להם עוד אחד, יצא הדין לאמיתו. So that's the real belief, that because the 2 litigants choose one more judge for themselves, the true judgment will emerge, because each litigant assumes that the judge he chooses do not bear a grudge against him, and he will accept their ruling. B'chachamim אומרים, the sages disagree with Rav Meir. They say that the 2 judges, meaning each selected zabla party from each one, they are the one who choose the third one. Neima b'Rav Yuda amarav kamifligei. We said that this disputation between Rabbi Meir and the sages depend upon statement that Rav Yuda said in the name of Rav. Amar Rav Yuda amarav en ha'edim chotmim al ashtar אלא אם כן יודעים מי חותם עמהם. Here is a matter of reputation. The witnesses would need to know in advance who is the other one, because if that person is disqualified, it's ruined the whole respect and qualification of the other witnesses and cause him tremendous agony and sorrow. And therefore, we studied in page 9. So therefore, they have the privilege and the right, some said even the obligation, to know who are the Mishnah Lamelech. You see it also in Sod HaChoshen that said b'diavad, in hindsight is okay, but lechatchila they have the right or even the obligation to know who is the other party that bear witness. Rab Meir lately, the Rav Yuda Amarav, the Rabbanan Itlu, the Rav Yuda Amarav. So this basically, according to Rabbanan, the 2 judges need to choose The third one, in order to have a fair, correct, proper person to be involved with the case. So the Gemara rejected that and said, לא, לכולי עלמא יתלו דרב יהודה אמרה ודעת הדיינים כולי עלמא לא פליגי דבעינן כי פליגי דעת בעלי דין. רב מאיר סבר דעת בעלי דין נמי בעינן ואומנם סבר דעת דיינים בעינן ודעת בעלי דין לא בעינן. So the question is, do you need the consent of the litigant or not? So Rab Meir said you did. The decision said no. The moment the two judges agreed, that's done. You don't need the consent of the litigant. גוף אמר רב יהודה אמר רב אין עדים חותמים על השטר. So the statement is that the witnesses cannot sign the document before they know who is the other one. So they said that's the people of scrupulous behavior in Yerushalayim used to know that who is the other signatories. They didn't reside in the court as long as they don't know in advance who is the other one who sit there. They don't sit with Amei Haaretz, but they allow in a way if there are some scholars, Torah scholars, and some Amei Haaretzot, but in general they don't associate, they don't go denigrate themselves to sit with reckless people together even in a meal. זה פוסל דיינו. So Rabbi Meir said that each one can disqualify the other judge. כל כמיני דפסיל דייני. So they said that is it in his power to disqualify judges? אמר רב יוחנן בערכאות שבסורה שלנו. This is a different story because he would talk about the layman's court in Syria. So in those courts, each litigant can refuse to be judged by the judge of the other Jews, but not regular. אבל מומחים לא. But expert, the baladin, the litigant cannot disqualify them. המדיקתני סיפה, ואחרים אומרים מתי בזמן שמביא ראיה שהם קרובים ופסולים. The sage says it's only if you bring a proof that those other parties' judges are basically relatives or disqualified for some serious reason. אבל אם היו כשרים מומחים מפני בית דין, אני יכול לפסולם. But if it's the qualified, valid people, and the בית דין approved them, so you cannot disqualify them. מכלל דרב מאיר מומחים למי כאמר. It means by that the may require people who are expert. מאי כאמר. אבל אם היו כשרים, נעשו כמומחים מפני בית דין ולא יכול לסופלם. Because if they are qualified to serve as judges or they are expert ordained by the rabbinic court, he cannot disqualify them. And basically what Rabbi Meir said is תשמע אמרו לרב מאיר לא כל המנו שפוסל דיין שמומחה לרבים. So it means that you don't disqualify the judge that's accepted as expert by the public. So he said, אימה לא כל המנו שפוסל, דיין שימחו רבין עליהן, או דיין שמומחה, there's a few versions, here we said שימחוהו רבין עליהן. So it means that people accepted that judge to be the expert. תן נמח לעולם פוסל והולך, עד שיקבל עליו בדין שמומחה לרבים, דברי רבי מאיר, והעדים כמומחין דמי, ואמר רב מאיר זה פוסל לדף וזה פוסל לדף של זה וזה פוסל לדף של זה, היתמר למה ריש לקיש פה קדוש יאמר דבר כזה, the holy mouth like that Rab Meir says such a strange statement that the litigant can prevent a witness from testifying against him. Rather, you have to say that the Mishnah teaches us Tnei Eido, which means his witness, that in a singular, meaning that the litigant can disqualify the only witness who testified alone. Eido lemai, what exactly the purpose of single witnesses? The Torah already said in the book of Dvarim chapter 19 that one witness is not sufficient. If you impose upon the other party to take an oath, he is like good qualified like two witnesses. That he accept upon himself the single witness as equivalent to two witnesses. So afterward, he retracted his arrangement to accept the single witness's testimony as if there were that of two witnesses. So Meir rules that his retraction is valid and the testimony is not accepted. Ma'ika Mashmalan, the Matze Hadarbei. that according to Rabbi Meir, the litigant can retrieve his view. Tanina, we learn in the Mishnah, page 24. Amar lo, one litigant said to that, Ne'eman alai Abba, Ne'eman alai Avicha, Ne'emanin alai shlosha roe bakar. Rabbi Meir omer, יכול לחזור בו, חכמים אומרים, לא יכול לחזור בו. So Rabbi Meir said that the one who made the offer can retract it. They said no, he cannot do it and must accept the verdict. Page 23b, ואמר רב דימי ברי דרב נחמן ברי דרב יוסף, כגון בקבלי עלי בחד. So here the idea is that we have a situation that one litigant accepted one of these people upon himself as one of the judges. So therefore, since there are others, so according to other two befitting, so according to Rabbi Meir, he can retrieve it because that follow the Torah laws is a puzzle, is not good. But Tosfot ask a question, why Rav Dimi needs here to mention that there is two problems. One, it's his father. The second one, that he judged by himself. So Tosfot tried to say that it's just one. The truth is, to remind me a story about a fellow that visited one of those hotels. Frum, observant Jew, and it was a huge sign in that hotel that the hotel is not responsible for any lost, stolen items. Unfortunately, a young couple came there and somehow things had been stolen. So he went to the owner and he tried to say that, things stolen and we lost everything, etc. So the owner said, look, it's a sign. So they argue. So he said to him, look, your father is a well-known rabbi. Whatever your father said, I'll go. And in that case, it turns that his father basically rules against his son in favor of the owner of the hotel. But in general, the whole concept here, and the next daf you see it a lot, the idea of negi'ah, that someone has an attachment or connection that make him disqualified. Here it's an issue of father, it's the issue that he solely judged. There's a great rabbi in Israel, his name is Rabbi Grossman. There are a few, but I'm talking about one that is a well-known posek. So one time the story goes that he attended a wedding and he was searching for Eidei Kiddushin. He was searching for the witness to co-sign the Ketubah. So he saw a fellow observant and he asked him to co-sign. The guy said, no, I can't do it. He said, why? He said, just a couple of hours ago I hit another fellow. They will have argument and the Torah prohibited to hit a fellow, so therefore the Torah called it rasha, wicked. So he tried to push him, etc. The guy said, no, absolutely not. So here's the big teshuvah response is, if a person can make such a ruling for himself to disqualify himself, for example, this type of case. Eventually he found someone else, but he derived from that a well-known response. So tzricha, דאי תנא אבא ואביך, בהא כאמרי רבנן דלא מצא הדרבה, משום דאבא ואביך, the fathers of the two litigants, חזו לעלמה, which means they can good to anybody else. אבל חד כבית. But when it's come to a monetary disputation, if one witness wants to operate as two, dile alma lo chazeh, that obviously follow the Torah law, one person cannot cause one party to be obligated to pay. Eima module le Rabbi Meir, may the sages agreed to Rabbi Meir that you can go in his way. If you tell me that we are in a case that they accepted one witness to operate as two, Rabbi Meir specifically said that in this type of case, the person can retrieve his acceptance. Why? Because as we learned many times, that one witness is not sufficient to impose monetary obligation. Aval be'ahi, in that case that one said that it's deemed credible to say that I trust the father, Eima modul Rabbanan, you may say that Rabbi Meir agree with the sages that he cannot retract it. Why? Because his father is befitting Dayan, befitting judge for other people. So therefore the Gemara said, Tzricha, it's necessary for the Mishnah to state both dispute. So the Bet Yosef said that we can derive from that in a hindsight, b'diavad, you can take edut shel pasul, which means you can take under a rare circumstance a testimony from someone who's on the surface is not befitting to give to give a testimony in general. But Yosef said, if you have psul edut, if you have someone who is disqualified, yet both litigants agree upon to have him. For example, in some cases, as you know, in our history, it was we're living in a society mainly of a non-Jew. So what do you do if you bring a non-Jewish person to a Jewish court to give a testimony? So according to Rabbi Meir, as much as the person shouting and he said that he retrieved it, we do accept a non-Jewish testimony when it's come to testimony. But obviously we're not allowed to have even a super expert, a non-Jewish person to be part of the decorum of three rabbinic judges. That's the whole idea, lo bifnei avudei kochavim. It's a famous psak, I don't think he's the only one, but the one I recall is the late Rav Ovadia Yosef, may rest in peace. So the story goes, when he was a rabbi in Egypt, it was a rabbinic court that basically needed to be approved by the government as well. So the government proposed in certain cases to have government attorney who was obviously not Jewish to be, like we call it in the modern days, the one who writes the minutes and the one who's part of the session. And Rav Ovadia had a strong response, so that he said, if you invited a non-Jew just as a witness, especially as a witness that is special expertise, that's fine. But al tasem et chaim rasha, the moment you put in your rabbinic court someone who's not ordained to be part of our system and one who's not part of our faith, obviously he prohibited to attend or to apply to such a session. Hamidiktane reisha, dayano, the seifa eidav, since we said in the first clause of the Mishnah that the other party can disqualify the judge that represents one party, and that's written in the language of singular. So the last clause, they talk in the plural, which is the witnesses. Alma davka tani. We said that specifically, and it's not, Rad Rama said it's not a mistake. Amar Rabbi Lazar bevahu ve'acher lefoslan. So here the litigant come with another one, that he come and testify that the other party brought witnesses that are disqualified to give witnesses. So they said, Kol keminei nogea be'edutohu. He has a conflict of interest. How can the court accept it? Because we know that nogea be'edu, the Gemara in Bava Batra 43 said that some has negiot, some have some attachment he is already have a conflict of interest, and he cannot be by any means part of that court session. You see it also in Choshen Mishpat 37. אמר רב אחא ברי דרבי כגון שקרא עליו ערער. Here we talk about the situation that he challenged the other party. So if he challenged that, like Rashi said, he bring about a bad reputation, his name. So therefore, it's a total ar'ar demai. What exactly he challenged? So he said, Ilema ar'ar de gazlanuta. If you tell me that he's guilty of theft or some other sins, kol keminei nogea beduto. So obviously, it's his testimony is tainted by a conflict of interest. Ela ar'ar difga mishpacha. So he's going to say that it's a blemish on the family, disqualified the family as their witnesses, because in general, pgam mishpacha, that is part of the Canaanite slave that not emancipated yet, so therefore he's disqualified, he and his family, to be a kosher witnesses. And they said, רב מאיר סבר, המשפחה כמסעדה והוא ממלא כפרסים ורמן זברי סוף סוף נוגע בעדותו. So here basically the difference is, according to Rabbi Meir, these witnesses, the litigant and the witnesses who testified with him are testifying about the family of the witness, and the witness is disqualified indirectly. And according to the sages, since his testimony is ultimately tainted by a conflict of interest, is not accepted. So the son-in-law of the stipler, the great late Rav Chaim bring the machloket that goes back to the time of the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because there is a machloket in regards to negi'ah, that someone has some direct or indirect attachment, and basically then it's a conflict of interest. So in one hand you have the levush. Levush as a point of view, he said that gzeirat hakatuv, that's a direct derivative from the text, that if someone has some interest, negi'ah, lo yachol leha'id, he cannot come to give a testimony by any means, because it's negi'ah. In negi'ah, we concern that it may be he's lying. So the Rameir, in that sense, derive here the same as the levush. So it's not because it's a concern that he is lying. It's just gzerat ha'ketuv, that's the decree from the text, versus a witness, not by the testimony, not by the witness. So it's only about the family. Here you have the sages that they said the same as the shach. That's the machloket between the levush and the shach. The sages, the Rab Meir hold the same as the levush, and the sages hold the same as the shach, Siftei Kohen. So he said a person lying in order to save his money, and it makes no difference how and what, in order to save his money, we are concerned that he may be lying, and therefore that make him disqualified. It was a well-known case in Yerushalayim, in one of those small neighborhoods called Mattersdorf. So it was a judge that reside over a case. It was one baker that works for the religious institution, and he did it for many, many years. And it was a lot of conflict, and then they decided to terminate his contract. So the problem is, they decided to go by Zabla. As we explained, ze borer lo echad, each party pick and choose one dayan. So what happened is, the dayan requested the religious institution to pay him per hour. It's called schar batala. It's basically get, for example, $75 per hour in those days. and the other party comes and says, that's not fair, because it's basically bribery. So he quoted, this Dayan quoted one of the important commentators on the code. It's called, a book called Erech Ishai. And the Erech Ishai tried to say, in Choshen Mishpat, he ruled that it's not, if he gets paid a large amount, that's a different story, but if he charge X amount of money in those years, it's just $75 per hour, he basically gets schar batala. Instead of doing other things, he's there. But he hold, Erech Shai hold that that's not any form of bribery, and therefore the court can continue its session, and it's not an issue for him to judge them per hour fee.